Camp on today. Yeah, look at him.
Y'all are too.
Boy, no, sick of people.
Y'all are too.
Oh,
What do I do with this?
see, it's smelling why these people think that these folks won't be finding that
Here one.
in stream. Okay, we live. Hey, okay. We live. That means we gotta watch what we say.
Yeah. We are.
If you tuned in now, we watching what we say.
Yeah,
We are officially censoring ourselves.
The mic is.
The mic is hot. The mic is hot. The mic is fire.
Yeah, the mic is hot.
Pick up.
Yeah, the mic is definitely hot. Right about now. It is hot.
Yeah. Like, yikes. All the be. I can't sing like Shakayla. But I can speak the words.
And that's what we're gonna do today.
Tuning in. Wake up. Come on. Wake up. It's Wednesday. All day. Till 20. We go. Oh, goodness.
Want to say good afternoon, and once again, it is definitely Wake Up Wednesday right here in Tallahassee. And listen, hey, listen, you know about go ahead on and call somebody and tell them to wake up.
Wake up.
I mean, you got to wake up because election matters, and I'm excited today to have in the studio, one of our co-hosts from back in the days, and he just happened to be in town today, Christine, and happened to be at court today. So it was a great day to have him in town. And before he gets on the road to head back to Hillsborough County, I say you might as well join us because the election matters, and you know a little bit about Tallahassee. So we're happy to have Mr. Jared Willis. How are you, sir?
Good. Happy to be here. Glad it's worked out.
Yeah, I'm glad it did too. And certainly with Christine, our conscious chick, today is the day. Listen, we just a few days away from election, and it's homecoming week in Tallahassee. A lot going on. I want to say good afternoon to Eureka. She is the workout queen, the queen of fitness. I want to say happy Wednesday to Eureka. Dixon Courier, he's making his way throughout different counties, and he's tuned in. I want to say good afternoon to Yvonne Stewart. Go ahead on and tag Yvonne, text all of my base to let them know it's time to tune in. We're talking election today. Christine, how have you been?
Listen, how have you been? I ain't to ask a question for the question, but
how have I been?
Well,
the doctor told me that I gotta keep my blood pressure down. There's so much going on that gets the blood flowing and gets my pressure going.
It was the burger you had for lunch, didn't it?
You would say that. Okay, well, let's see what this conversation has. Either this conversation that we have concerning the election today, it's either going to run my blood pressure up, it's going to make some people upset.
Right?
And you leaving town, me and Christine going to be here. But hey, listen.
We might have to go find you. Yeah. Where you find the hills? Don't tell everybody.
Hey, listen, these are our views that we're sharing today, our views, our opinions, and basically it has nothing to do with the station overall. Responsible disclaimer.
But we ain't gonna cuss because God is still in the building.
He's still in the building, but Peter is still alive. Peter. They're taking out the sword, cutting people.
We're not rebuking Peter today.
But listen, so much is going on in and around our city. And before we start, elections are really hard. I mean, this Corey Simon, Darryl Parks race, it has the TV on fire. It has every social media outlet on fire.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
I think it's important for people to know that how elections work, right? So you have the stuff that Corey, the campaign, is sending out. Darryl, the campaign, is sending out. And then you have these ugly things called PACs, right? Political action committees. Probably the majority of the ugly stuff that you're getting is coming from the PAC. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think for the most part, a campaign doesn't want to. I mean, campaigns try very hard not to have anything negative have their name on it, and so a lot of the negative messaging that you see will come out of other similarly aligned entities, but that are not the campaign. And so that's where a lot of these PACs come in. Yep.
And these PACs generate millions upon millions of dollars to. How do I describe what they do? I mean,
So who's the five? Who's the five? Who's the five? That's what they doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of a political committee is you have kind of I think the standard at least is that you would have a vehicle where people can give as much as they want to a similarly aligned cause. But I think as it's played out, we've seen these political committees become a tool to raise a lot of money and put out a lot of messaging. And again, you kind of have that dynamic where you don't want a campaign candidate to be saying negative things. You want them to be the adult in the room. And so these PACs are excellent vehicles to do negative things with. And so I think that's what we're being inundated with for the next few days.
I know that, but we're talking about mailers. We're talking about so much that is inundating us when it comes to campaigning, even from a national level, state level, and even local level. And I think here locally, we got some exciting hot races. I mean, the Dot Inman Johnson race has become one that has really, really bothered me because of some of the, I guess, and there's no PAC in there.
There is California. Yeah, she got money behind that coming from outside of town. Plenty of money coming from outside of town. So, and this is the thing with it. Please talk about this, right?
Yeah.
The question becomes, what's the intent, right?
Yeah.
What is the intent of putting bulldogs on each other for a local race, right? What's the intent of the ugliness, right? And it ain't just the mailers, right? We go to the city commission meetings and we are ridiculous, right? Yeah. We are in the streets, door to door, being ridiculous, right? It's what's the intent? I'm very suspicious of why it takes $80,000-$90,000 from California or wherever money's coming from to institute into a local race. What is the intent here?
I mean, I think the overarching intent is, I mean, you're fighting for hearts and minds, right? Like all of the messaging that's going out is with the intent to make somebody's mind up about who a candidate is or is not. And I think the underlying intent is, if you look at our city commission right now, it's a 5-person city commission. You have 3 folks that tend to vote kind of similarly.
Okay.
You have 2 folks that tend to vote oppositely.
Okay, let's stop right.
Yeah.
Can I stop right there?
Sure.
Before we get okay, so it's a 5-seat commission.
Yeah.
And normally it's going to be the 3-2 vote.
Yeah. I mean, we've
very seldom do we see all 5 commissioners voting unanimously. Very seldom.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be 3-2. Now, when we look at the 3-2 vote, this is just me. The 2 votes that I can constantly see are always in opposition of the 3 that are voting for the betterment and the upbuilding of our community. Now, the dais has on it a lot of envy, a lot of personal vindictive endeavors going on. And that's not good for our city at all.
No, it's not.
I mean, Mr. Jeremy Matlow makes it known that he is totally against anything the mayor does.
Yeah.
And that creates an environment that is not productive for our community. It breeds hate.
Yeah.
It breeds divisiveness. And now you can carry on. So
Well, I mean, but the outcome of that though is because it's a 1 vote margin, it's everything hinges on 1 vote.
Right.
It's not, there's no ability to be collegial when you're fighting for 1 vote.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why you see thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars being spent because it's all to get that 1 more vote. I mean, Tallahassee's 1 vote away from seeing a whole different city commission, and frankly, a whole different. I mean, the city of Tallahassee as an administrative body, I think you'll see a very different philosophy there. I mean, if it were to flip, so and that's what's at stake. And I think ultimately, I mean, to answer your question in a shorter way, it's power, right? It's all about
Right.
who has the power and what they have the power to do.
So really, it's not about the people.
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I don't think. I think that there are folks on the dais. I mean, I obviously have my own personal bias, and anyone watching this probably already walks in knowing how I feel. But I mean, I think that I think the majority body that you have right now, the 3 that vote similarly, you have the mayor, Commissioner Richardson, and Commissioner Williams Cox. I think that they have done a pretty good job of putting the people first. I mean, if you look at, we were talking about this earlier, if you go onto the city's social media and you see, it's not the exciting stuff, right? It's like ribbon cuttings, it's road openings, it's things along those lines that are, it's the everyday running of the city. You'll see a trend, and I'm not going to tell you what the trend is, but there are some who show up and there are some who don't.
Right.
And it's very evident, and that's the business of the people, right? I mean, the business of the people aren't these things that we're fighting over. They're not these kind of red meat issues. It's, are my lights on? Is the
Right.
street light around my corner on? Is the sidewalk something that my kids aren't going to trip over? It's kind of the boring stuff. It's, are the buses running on time? And those are the things that the majority is kind of tasked with doing. And then you have a group of folks that want to take that power. And I think at that point, you have this kind of dichotomy of, we're trying to do the business of the people and we want more power over here. And so you kind of see those things clashing.
Yeah, I think I follow along. I think so. What I've watched and what has been extraordinary to me is the y'all make sure I say this right. The politicalization of the fire department and the fire union. I think it's been really interesting to see that, right? Because the folks that are behind the fire union, and I'm a fan of the fire department. Please show up at my house when I call you. All right. I mean, I'm loving it. But the debate here with those 2 entities, the city, they have a union and they negotiate with the city every year.
Yeah.
There's some old school beef with some old school stuff, right?
Yeah.
But every year they come to the table and they negotiate with the city,
best?
right?
Yeah.
What's interesting is this year you had the fire union, the firefighters union come to the table with the city. They had their debate. And then you had the 2 that came with their ideas of what they think the city should do for the fire department, right? Or the firemen. The interesting part is that the city and the union, they came to terms.
Yeah.
But we still have this politicalization of what the 2 wanted, right, for the fire department, when back in the day, this was never a highly political issue. It was something they came to the table with every year. The police have a union, they do the same thing.
Yep.
Okay. And so to see it be amplified, I asked 2 questions. First of all, why? Right? And then second of all, okay, why not defend the entire public service cadre? Why not include the police? The police are going through something.
Yeah.
Why will we vote against the budget because it funds police, but we hype up make it hugely political what's going on with the fire union? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think the equity in the issues is kind of I feel there's an inequity in the issue. I feel like, I don't want to call it hypocrisy, but you don't like the way that the public service or the police department, you don't like what the police department is, what it does. You want a restructuring of that. You don't like the police chief. You don't like all these things. But there's still deputies that serve our community. There's still officers that serve our community.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that bothers me. We can't get past the political conundrum of the Bloods and the Crips of who we like and don't like to get to the issue. And the issue is making sure that there is harmonization and equity among all our public safety folks, right? Because when I'm not calling Mayor Daley when somebody breaking my house, I'm calling the police, right? And so it makes sense. I'm not even calling the fire department. I'm calling the police, right? Or if my house burned down, I'm not calling the police. I'm calling the fire department. Why do we engender this type of dissonance in agencies that have to work together to be able to provide necessary infrastructure of public safety to our community? That's one thing I got a problem with. A lot of it, but I think it quantifies most specifically why I asked the question, what's the intent?
And I know that when we look at that, we can automatically see how it divides us. Not only how it divides us, but then it puts us against each other. And I just feel like this election cycle has been that. And since we own that, there are a few more things we got to get to, but I want to get to this question that's being raised by one of our social media listeners. They asked, can you all talk about whether we should vote according to party without doing our research on the candidates and individuals, regardless of the party that they may be a part of?
You in the spirit. You in this. Who posted that?
Let's see. This is coming from Kamalita.
Oh, hey, Kamalita. Hey.
Okay, so I mean, I think that's a great question, and we got so much to talk about. But since she raised that question, I think we might as well dive into that now.
The answer is no. You don't vote by party. I'm so against that. If you could see my sample ballot, and I'm not going to be releasing that, but if you could see my sample ballot, it's like a Christmas tree. It's all over the place. But the reason is I think the reason we're so divided as a country is we're presented with this and it's national, state, local, it's all of it. We're presented with this system of false choices where it's like, all right, do I want to love my LGBT friends and neighbors, or do I want to have better tax? I mean, there's all these choices where it's like you have to choose things that you don't like about one party because you like other things about their platform. And I think at the end of the day, the only way to reconcile that, especially for all of us that are kind of somewhere in the middle, which I think most of us are, the only way to reconcile that is to look at the individual and, what do they bring to the table? Is your life better because they've been in office, or is it not better? And is this other person presenting a better plan? And to me, that's always kind of how I've looked at the ballot. I have my own party affiliation, but I'm not, I don't vote that way. I feel like that's a really important thing for people to look at.
Wow. I mean, I'm gonna have to echo that same sentiment. And I'm very vocal about because there was a time I could not vote, so therefore voting became such an important issue to me after being incarcerated for over 13 years. The value of the vote became important. The value of a voice. The value in prison. I will tell you this: in prison, fighting for release, guys didn't care whether you were Democrat, Republican, or independent. If you were speaking for our issue.
Yes.
Okay. So once you understand a person who is speaking for your issue, and here's the thing about it: I'm non-denominational. You're Presbyterian. You're the Catholic. But even though we are in different denominations, that should not divide us, because I see you as an individual. And we're not going to always agree on everything. But the thing that brings us to a happy medium is the fact that I understand who you are, and I understand what you do in the office that you serve in. You could be, and I've almost literally years in the past got into, and I try to keep on my whole armor you know, the helmet of
Mhm.
salvation. I try to keep on my whole armor so I don't have to take off that armor and put on the other armor.
Come on.
But there were times when many people who were running for office who were my friends. And I said to them, I'm not voting for you. You're my friend, but I don't think you will serve in this position well.
Mm.
I'm voting for someone who I feel would do a better job. I've lost relationships. And to lose relationships because you make a decision of your own that you're going to do and you're going to operate in what's best for you, then we weren't friends anyway.
Mm.
So, Ms. Hawkins, I feel that people should do the research, and I feel that they should vote for individuals, not parties. There are some individuals that I love, and they're not Democrats.
Mm.
I love what they do. I love what Corey Simon does.
Love it.
I love what he does. And the thing about it is that I am saying to individuals, you got to research, you got to know people. Hell, I ran. Oh, did I say that? Oh,
You did say that. Praise
I
God.
ran for office, and I hate to bring this up, and I know I was qualified to do the work of the people, but the establishment and others who I bent over backwards for decided that, hey, we can't vote for him because of this, this, and this. We got to stick to the party.
Hmm.
And at this point, I'm trying to figure out where's the representative for District 8.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point, Pastor. I think that we have to look at the condition of the party system right now.
Yeah.
I'm a Republican by designate. I am a check mark member of the Republican Party. Now, do I go to Republican events? Do I do Republican stuff? No, right? I have voted ever since I've been here for impact. For impact.
Yeah.
But you look at and I was hurt a couple of days ago because I got a postcard in the mail. And it had on there a beautiful picture of Kamala Harris and the Democrats. And guess who wasn't on there? Carmen Cummins wasn't on there. Curtis Richardson wasn't on there. So all the Democrats were not on there. I didn't see Brian Welch on. I didn't see no. So you present to me a picture of these are the Democrats.
Right.
And your party is supporting this. They're funding this through PAC, this party that you align with. What does that say about the condition and the health of the local party? What does that say when you have all Democrats on your city commission and you got a continued 3-2 split?
Yeah.
Why is that? They had a non-Republican on the city commission. But you have this disunity. And I think you have to look at the party system as a whole and make a tough choice and say, look, is this where America's going?
Mm-hmm.
Do people want to be aligned with a party?
Absolutely.
Do people want people to be accountable, especially in this age where you ain't trusting people for information like you used to?
Yeah.
It was what you said, what the pastor said, what the notable and honored people said. That's what everybody went with because they were trusted people.
Right.
Now you got people that aren't trusted, but they want to control you.
Yeah.
You got folks who are they are not to be trusted. They are self-centered, self-motivated, self-inclined, but they have power over the minds of people who don't know better.
Right.
They're not trustworthy. And they are sending out the wrong message. And guess who gets hurt behind this?
The people.
The people. And
Right.
that's what moves that's what hurts
Yeah,
that's
the
why I won't change. I don't care. Because
Yeah.
I can vote for who I want to vote for in the election.
Yeah.
But I think what's indicted here
Is
is the party system
Hmm.
as a whole.
and you know, and wow, Kamalita, you really kind of like done got us off course, but we wanted to answer you because there's so much we want to talk about. But when you take a look at the Democratic Party, you got to look at what we have dealt with now so far. Right now, we got a low turnout.
Low.
Really, really, really low turnout. I was reading an article from Jacksonville, and it was talking about how the Democrats are not coming out to vote, how the Republican Party voting has increased. In Tampa, it's the same way. There are several cities, and the question now becomes, what is happening? I mean, what does the leadership of our local Democratic Party look like? The leadership looks like that we're more interested in fighting those who are serving as to trying to empower people who are in these party affiliations to get out to vote because they have their own agenda, and we cannot continue to allow people to serve that's not serving the best interest of the people.
Yeah.
Now, can you explain what you mean when you say that? Because I think we say the best interest of the people. What is the best interest of the people? Can we deal with that for a second?
Absolutely. Let's look at 32304. Let's look at the South Side. Let's look at some of our neighborhoods that are on life support.
You're doing better, but okay.
But they're doing
Some
better.
of us need more. Yeah, some need more than others. That's
Some
right.
need more than others.
That's right.
And let's look at the representation that are serving in those areas. I mean, we had a chance to elect a young man from the Griffin Heights neighborhood. I mean, and I'm talking about the fact that we are a Democratic Party that's trying to inspire other Democrats to get out and vote. But the leadership that we see, and which is being ran by a guy by the name of Ryan Ray, I think he's the chairman of the local party, who I just saw the news, DUI.
Well, no, it wasn't. They let him go.
Oh yeah, they let him go.
What happened?
So I mean, the video is online. I mean, he was basically asleep in his car at the Circle K over off of Pensacola, and so the staff at the Circle K called the cops and said, "Hey, there's this guy. We think he's drunk. He got out of his car. He's wandering around. He's back in his car." So the police pull up, and he's sitting in his car, and he's very clearly inebriated. And I mean, I guess the rationale was because he wasn't driving the car then, although he said he had been driving. He said he came from the governor's club. There was damage to the front of his car. They weren't sure what was there, but ultimately they let his girlfriend come and pick him up and take him home.
Well, glad somebody came.
Again, here's again, and you know I could go on and on, but this is the same group of people that's fighting.
They're the ones that are in charge. I mean, and they're the ones that are leading the conversation. And I mean, to your point, when we talk about the local party and party politics, it's important to also note that our city commission isn't a partisan body. And what I mean by that is there's no Democrats, there's no Republicans. When you go to vote for a Tallahassee city commissioner, there's no RD, NPA, there's nothing next to their name because it's not meant to be a partisan position, right? I mean, because the Tallahassee City Commission, they don't make rules on things like abortion or gay marriage or any of kind of the big issues that everyone fights over and that kind of defines our current party politics system. They make, again, like I was saying, they're dealing with streetlights, they're dealing with road expansions, they're dealing with the infrastructure, the things that affect everyday people in getting to and from work and when they turn their tap on, is the water coming out clean? And so now we have this system where you have a local party that's kind of taken these national level issues, inserted into our local governing body, and has created this dysfunction that really doesn't belong there. I mean, you know, I think one of the great examples when we talk about Commissioner Richardson is they have absolutely bludgeoned him over this vote that he took against a resolution that it was aimed at the legislature on abortion. And so Commissioner Richardson was very clear on that. He said, this is not the role of the city. And meanwhile, by the way,
because he understands the function of government, but continue.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I mean, the city is asking the state government for a number of things. I mean, on any given legislative session, a municipal body or a county goes to the state and they ask for money for bridge building, for park expansion, for all of the things I just mentioned. And so essentially Commissioner Richardson was like, we're stepping out of our lane. And by the way, we don't want to engage in this because we have business that we have to do with the state that has nothing to do with this larger issue that we have no control over. But you know, the local party has taken that and said, well, he voted against a woman's right to choose. And they've taken a vote that was aimed at let's not break the people we're here to serve, working on something that we have no ability to work on. And by the way, he was very clear that he supported that right, that he's all in on it. but they've taken it and they've worked it and they've twisted and I mean, frankly, I don't mind saying it, they've lied about it. And they've lied about it to people that care about it. Because the other thing is with that issue, there are people that deeply care about that. It's going to be on the Florida ballot. It's going to be something that we're already talking about it on a national level, and people feel very strongly about this. And to have a local party deceive them about where their elected official is on an issue like that.
That has nothing to do with our city government.
Right.
Nothing at all.
They can't activate, they can't create no skills, they can't do anything.
And I think that when we look at the dais, we got to recognize the fact that our Commissioner Curtis Richardson served in the legislature
Yes, he did.
as a House representative.
Yeah.
So
Arguably, he's the one on that dais that understands that
Yeah.
the best out of anyone.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and he made it clear.
Yeah.
And this is why those of you who are listening to the broadcast, you got to do your research. You cannot let mailers and you cannot let radio ads with people who are making allegations that he doesn't care about Black people and he doesn't support Frenchtown. You cannot let things like this get into do your research. Because when you look at where our city has come from, you got to be able to appreciate a presence of a Curtis Richardson. You got to be able to appreciate a voice because he has the wisdom and he has the experience and the knowledge to know what's best and what's good for the constituents of our city. Yeah,
I think it's important to also note with Commissioner Richardson, who has pretty much served in public life without political scandal. Okay. Personal, whatever they want to bring up, whatever, right? But in terms of his service on the political level, he has done so ethically and he has done so without incident.
Yeah.
We also need to understand that Commissioner Richardson was in the legislature when they did the health department over there down in Bond. So they were able to get a master plan, get money to do a master plan so that they could create a health department off of Orange Avenue. And then surrounding it were houses that were made available to families to live in that surrounded access to the health department. That's the type of mindset that you are reelecting, right? But I also want to help people understand, like to your point earlier, it's about power. Did you know, neighbors, that the city of Tallahassee has a $1.2 billion budget? So when we go back to the question of intent, that's your intent.
Yeah.
When you are battling out on the field of election and you have diverse ideological stances, you have to murder your opposition. It's not about I'm running my race against you. I have to attack you ideologically. I have to. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with all with the same D's behind their name. Very different ideological stances, right? Across the board.
One for people, one for power.
Well, they may think they're for the people, right? They might think that because you hear a lot of conversations about poverty and a lot of the people that are working on that campaign, they're very much involved in the poor people's campaign and different issues relating to the disenfranchised and things of that sort. And I want to be very, very sensitive to this conversation, right? Because I am the disenfranchised. I live among others like us who are working to build and bring resource to our community. But to a large extent, that agenda has worked against the interests of the community. So I try not to bring this up because it brings my blood pressure up. But it was largely poor people's campaign and folks like that came against us having the police station in the South Side. They undermined and disrupted the voice of the people, the conscience of the people were brought in by interest to disrupt that process. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of ugliness behind that. I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff. But I think we have to be very careful that we don't support things that represent the very things that we're trying to erode and we're trying to progress beyond. And we have to get beyond party because there are people who are doing good work. they are making a difference. And hopefully we get to talk about some of that they're doing. But the charge is out there. See beyond the politics. Please don't be indoctrinated by these cards and these commercials. If you have any left agency left in you, do your research, learn who these folks are, learn their why, and vote accordingly.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that too. I mean, you had a great point. You know, they're in a lot of ways they're making the right sounds, right? They're saying the right things, but it goes back to what I said earlier. I mean, I think the question is your life better because of that? And I think I'm gonna tie this in. When you mentioned the firefighter issue before, I think that's a really great example of the idea of lip service versus actual results, because you have an individual. I mean, Matlow said that he was there. I mean, there was no denying that he was on the side of the firefighters, at least if you hear what he's saying. But then if you look at the way the vote played out, the final vote on the contract, it was a 4-1 vote.
4-1.
4-1. And guess who the one was? And so to me, that tells me, okay, we finally brought this thing in for a landing. A lot of people aren't happy. And, I come from a business perspective. If nobody's happy, you probably have an okay deal. But a lot of people weren't happy. But at the end of the day, this was something that was going to put money in the pockets of our firefighters and allow them to move forward. And you had somebody vote against that. And so what that says to me is that it was never about the firefighters. And this is where I'm going with this. You talked about lip service. My problem with that is that you say things, and again, they're the right sounds, but the intent behind it has nothing to do with the people that you're using as essentially props. These are props for these folks. They're saying the right things, and they show you a picture of a firefighter. They get everyone out there, and they use them as props. And the issue though is that at the end of the day, it's never about the people. It's about the power. And so again, that 4-1 vote to me tells me the story that I need. And so I think it's the same with other issues. So when you talk about the bond community, why don't we look at who's actually showing up in the bond community? And to me, the answer is very clear. I mean, I don't think anyone, even if you don't like Commissioner Richardson, and I've heard people that don't like Commissioner Richardson, they have to give him the fact that he shows up to everything. He is everywhere. They call him the Dean of the City Commission because of his tenure and because he is present. And so I think when you look at, again, it's good to start the conversation, but you have to bring it in for the landing. And I think that, that's a great example.
Yes,
Wow.
That's good.
Hey, I tell you, Carmelita, you just really took us way off of a planned scheduled agenda. But however, I think it was good, and I think that it says something because a lot of people are just anticipating that I'm going to either vote D or I'm going to either vote R, or person who's running as an MPA don't even have a chance. But when you do your research and when you look at the individual as a person and look at what they stand for, the D, the R, or the MPA really shouldn't matter, because you should be voting for an individual who you feel like can best serve in that position. And guess what? When you vote, you're voting your conscience. You're voting your insight. You're voting your convictions. And that's between you and the ballot box. And you don't have to express that to no one, nor do you have to convince others. You lay out the facts, do your research. And if your research comes up like mine does, then, the vote will be definitely easy to determine. I mean, when you think about what she asked, I mean, and we don't want to belabel it, but it automatically takes you to the race for Senate. I mean, you got Corey Simon, who's a Republican, you got Darren Parks, who's a Democrat. And so the question now becomes, because I'm a Democrat, do I just vote for a Democrat? Or because I'm a Democrat and I know the work that I've seen Senator Simon doing, and I know the involvement that I've seen in him, what do I do? So I think the question that she asked is a great question.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we need to get wrapped up in parties. I mean, because right now when we look at it, the local Democratic Party, I mean, for me, I didn't get any support. And I'm not saying this because, but it's just a reflection of when people are grouped together with an agenda, then they'll do whatever they can, however they can, like they can, to support and convince others to do likewise. And I'm grateful for the 3,000 plus formerly incarcerated men that's a part of my network. Let me say that again, 3,000 plus that are part of my network, formerly incarcerated, who got their rights to vote back. And we are constantly in contact. And what we understand is it's never about D or an R, because at one point we didn't even have a right to vote, so nobody even thought about us or cared about us. Now that we do, we still don't get that kind of interest in people saying your vote matters. So we talk among ourselves and we make decisions among ourselves. And I'm grateful for that. I've got several guys who have gotten all of their rights back and who have gotten pardoned, all because I've had an opportunity to meet with our senator and say, hey, look, this is something that we need to be working on. And I got guys right now that I'm working with now. So I'm excited about the person and not the party. All right. Well, listen, anybody?
Well, I was just going to add to that. I think there's also an aspect of party that cuts kind of in a good way. I think we've been fairly negative about the two-party system, and I think there's definitely some issues with both parties. But I think when you look at the way that the party system works, it is advantageous to us as a community to have somebody that sits at the table. And so, when you look at the amount of appropriations dollars that somebody like Corey Simon can bring in versus kind of the Democrats that we had before, and it's not a knock on the Democrats that we had before. I think they did their best to kind of work on both sides, but he's able to get things that we weren't able to get otherwise. We've had hundreds of millions of dollars flowing into the community that we wouldn't have had otherwise. I mean, I think just right after Hurricane Idalia came through, and obviously, his district goes, I think, all the way out to Lake City, but he was able to bring hundreds of millions of dollars in relief money in. And I'm not convinced that we would have, I think that the governor and the legislature would have helped, but I think he's uniquely positioned to go to bat for the community in a way that somebody who's on the other side that has, quote unquote, the right letter next to their name, I don't think they'd be able to do as much for the community. And it's not, for me, even when I look at it, it's not even a knock on Darrell Parks. It's the fact that, do you want somebody who's capable, who's essentially negotiating on behalf of the community? Do you want somebody who's capable of speaking the same language and coming to the table and being given a position at the table? Or do you want somebody who's starting off from behind? And I think that's, for me, overarchingly, when I look at state politics, I'm like, okay, who do I want going to bat for the community? And to me, I think it's pretty clear.
And who can go to bat for the community, right?
Right.
And one thing that I've noticed as I watched the Senator Simon in action, he has been very, very active with working with our Democratic delegation here in the area to move things forward broad base, particularly as it relates to resourcing the community's needs.
Yep.
Now, I will for folks that care about this, help y'all understand that Florida has a projected $2.1 billion surplus for FY fiscal year 2025-26.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, but how did that happen?
So basically what has happened is, because of the fiscal policy and the fiscal spirit of our state, we are, I think our economy is probably the second or third in the nation right now.
Mhm.
And the reason for that, but our population is nowhere close to the two states that are in ahead of us, right? Florida's growing at 1,000 people per day. People are flocking to Florida to live. And the reason why is because everywhere else there is a great environment for business growth. There's a great environment for being able to have fiscal responsibility and spending. And so there's good fiscal accountability measures on the state government. Wherever you fall ideologically is where you fall. But where you lose and you bankrupt yourself is fiscal policy. And when you have somebody in place that can balance a budget and post a surplus, that is a big deal. And so looking at a 2.1, and last year I think was over $1 billion surplus as well. So this surplus has steadily been growing. Now, with the rising cost of healthcare, the rising cost of education, all of these outliers, that could quickly turn to a deficit with the wrong leadership.
Yeah.
I think this is really important for us to understand. So the philosophy of leadership is so important, right? But when you're in that seat, whether you're a D or the R, you still represent your big D, the district.
Yeah.
And you have to represent your community and fight for the money that your community needs. And you need to have somebody in there that got the ear of the prevailing.
I mean, let's say
let's
it
have
like
a
this.
real conversation.
Absolutely. Mike Court has a question. I'm gonna get to your question, but let's say it like this. And I think that it's so important. Election matters. And if you all, we're on Faith Radio. There's a young man who in the book of Genesis, who went to prison. His name was Joseph. Joseph had one gift, and that gift was God had given him the ability to interpret dreams. He had many others, but this was a powerful one. He told the baker and the butcher, he said, man, listen, y'all gonna get out, but when y'all get out, remember me. 2 years passed, nobody remembered Joseph, but the king had a dream that none of his employees could interpret.
Mm-hmm.
And someone went to the king and said, hey man, listen, I was in jail with a guy. He has a gift. I believe he can interpret this, king. They called for Joseph. Joseph went, interpreted the king's dream. The king recognized the gift that he had. The king didn't care about his number was 1004. The king did not care about what crime he had committed. The king cared about none of that. What he was able to understand was this man has solved the problem. People who solve problems sits at tables. People who understand the needs of people can move into an area to help facilitate what needs to be. Joseph now sits at the table, but he's able now to save his people because they will die of famine. I said all that to say this as well. Until you can really see the work that someone is doing at the table, you'll never understand why they are at the table, because you'll always be bombarded with your feelings and your personal agendas and your emotions. This is an hour, this is a moment where we've got to move past how we feel about people, what we think about them, and see, is the job getting done?
Yeah.
And a lot of things that are clouding our mind are messages of deception. They're messages of divisiveness, and it is keeping us frustrated from what's going on.
Well, and I think that goes to Michael's question. I mean, he's asking about if you can operate outside of the party affiliation and what that looks like. And to me, I think that's a great example. If you look at each party, you mentioned deception. I think each party has been labeled by the other party as A, B, or C, right? I mean, if you're a Republican, they label you one way. If you're a Democrat, they label you the other way. And I think it's important to note that if you look at both parties, there's a lot of division even within the party.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
There is not a Republican that agrees on one issue where there's not another Republican that disagrees on that issue. And I think it's the same with the Democratic Party. And I mean, we see that fracture probably more up close here locally, but in Republican communities, they have the same kind of fractions. And so I think when to your question, Michael, you're asking, can somebody function outside of a party? And if so, why do they stick with that party affiliation? But I think the better question is both taking as a fact that neither party is exactly what the other party says they are. I think that you need to look at the individual and say, okay, are they capable of going to bat within that party system and saying, okay, this is what I believe and this is what I care about. And that goes to their actual beliefs, which requires you to go beyond the letter next to their name and dig into who they are as a person, which is kind of what we can encourage.
And I think that once people know who you are, then they're able to understand what you are doing when it comes to the role that you're playing. I mean, Carmelita, you have just took us in a whole nother direction. But since we hear one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and thank you for doing the research on that. I wanted to kind of like identify what has happened when we talk about working through the system and being able to work to help facilitate what is needed in different counties. When we talk about Senator Simon, and I don't think that he talks about it. I don't think other people talk about it. But I think that one of the things that has happened for Gadsden County is that he was able to well over $50+ million that was appropriated to help facilitate some of the things that was done there. I don't even know. I think it's total for the whole district came over to be what, over 100 million?
Oh, 116.
116 million to that was inside of the district. Well, now here's the thing that you got to understand. We're so used to playing checkers. You jump, I jump. King. In prison, we learned a game that was strategically designed to make you think about every move that you make. And that game is called chess. And that game was strategic. And here it is as we look at where we are now, ladies and gentlemen, you got to do your research. Because you want to say voting doesn't matter, my voice doesn't matter. Well, I tell you what, when you don't vote, then you really don't matter. And with so much going on now, I mean, it's imperative. Kamala said, my apologies. It was needed. It was, and it really has caused us to drive this home because in barbershops, I mean, conversations are being held. And I always ask guys, well, why are you voting for this person? Why you vote? Oh, he black. Oh, why you vote? Oh, he Democrat. And there's no real research being done to substantiate why I'm voting for who I'm voting for. So that race is a very, very, it's a hot race.
It's a hot race, but you know what? And I will say this, because I Daryl Parks is my neighbor. There is nothing otherwise I wouldn't support Daryl Parks in. I just see the landscape. It would be irresponsible of me to know what's going on and to not be responsible, right? When you talk about $43 million in Leon County, when you're talking about, all of the resources that sometimes let's just have a real conversation that favor procures, right? That favor procures.
Yeah.
Why not activate the one that has the favor and work with them? Figure out what the needs are, hold them accountable for making sure that the needs of the community are conveyed in such a way. There's no reason why we can't, after this election, come together with our senator and say, look, you're looking at a $2.1 billion surplus on the state level next year. These are some opportunities we have in our community. You want to work together? Let's sit here and map out some ways that we can turn this $43.6 million that you brought last year into more money to bring more economic impact to your neighbors. And I that is my dream. That is my hope. But I know he has the favor to do it. And that's the hard conversation to tell somebody. I don't tell somebody, oh, you ain't got the clout. That's not, clout and favor are two different things.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I also think there's another aspect of it too. We can't have that conversation if we're not in a position to be speaking the same truth. And so I think part of the other issue is, I mean, I think I'm assuming everybody has probably seen the commercials, and it's, the idea that you have statements being made about where somebody is on an issue. And I'll just say it. I mean, Daryl Parks' campaign has been very dishonest about the way that Senator Simon voted on the abortion. And putting aside, any ideological, whether you're pro-life, pro-choice, I think it's pretty clear that people have a right to know how their senator voted. And for somebody to say and to be spending money and to be pushing out a message that is just completely false, to me, I just think that's inexcusable, because again, we can't have conversations about what he brings to the community if we can't even be honest about the way that he has interacted in the legislature. And I think that that's another clear sign. I think it's a clear sign to me that we have the right person there. He's taking votes that are being misconstrued, but are probably tough on him as far as the way his party feels. And so anyways, I think we need to be honest too about what's actually happening. And I'm not sure that I'm not sure that at least one side of this race has been engaging in that way. So
Yeah, well, I can tell you what, and Pastor James can close this out.
Yeah.
You know, people are tired of the negativity.
Yeah.
They're ready to move forward. And I pray and hope in the next couple of days as people cast their ballots and cast their care, you know, that people can begin this conversation of now, how can we move forward?
Hey, well, listen, this has been Election Matters. It's been an amazing show. There was so much we had, and Miss Carmelita Hawkins just took us off of the thing. But for the judge race, don't forget, it's an important one. LaShawn Riggins, Robert Church here, our county commission, Carolyn Cummings, and David. I don't know this young man. I don't know.
Go, Karen, Miss Carolyn. Go, Miss Carolyn, go.
District 4, we have Brian Welch and Isaac Matilla. And so you got to get out Senator Corey Simon, Darrell Parks, and House seat with District Allison Ted and Spencer.
I think we didn't get the, but we have it on the show, so I think we spent a lot of oil on that. But you know, Allison, that's
Everybody, but the messaging,
yeah, it's a mess.
the messaging is absolutely damaging. But if you know her and you know who she is, then you as an individual will be able to convey to others, this is not the person that I know. So then there is our superintendent's race has really heated up has not heated up in a very negative way, but it's heated up in a very educational way. And it has opened the eyes of a lot of people when it comes to some things that we need to be aware of as we move forward. And that's going to be an interesting race, Superintendent Hannah and Joe Burgess. And then this is a very quiet race, and that's House seat District 8.
Very quiet.
Very quiet race. I mean, you know, the young lady, I had an opportunity to meet her, but no.
What's her name?
Orlando Glass. I met her. Glass, met her. She has a great heart. But I mean, she's running against our incumbent. We got Senator Representative Franklin. And so, you know, a very quiet race.
Very quiet.
Very quiet race.
You know, sometimes those races are such a good way to find good people to run for other seats. So, you know, I don't know this individual, but you know, I've found it's always fun to see in some of these races where it's like, okay, the challenger is probably not going to be the incumbent, but it's cool to see people step up. And I think there's been a lot of folks that have come out of the woodwork in that way, and you're like, okay, this might not be your time, but you're going to do something cool later. And so I don't know. I'd be interested to see kind of what her stances are and what that looks like.
Wow. And then in Jefferson County, I mean, you know, Jackie Pons, he's headed to the general. And so I'm all asking, hey, I can't vote in Jefferson, but all of my friends over in Jefferson, you know, I think Jackie has been doing an amazing job. And then over in Gadsden County, we got a sheriff race that's really, really interesting. Really, really interesting.
I really want to hear about that. I really want to hear about that.
I know. I mean, I like I said, I met the young man who's running for sheriff against Sheriff Marsh, William Buckoff. I think he's a great individual. Even though I can't vote in Gadsden, but if I was a resident there, he would be getting my vote. And the reason why is because, I mean, I like what he says. I like how he says it. I'm good on discernment. So at the end of the day, you know, I just feel like, you know, when you look at law enforcement, I mean, you know, you got to look at, I think our sheriff here has set a model in place.
Oh, yeah. Very hard, very big.
I mean,
shoes.
yeah, he set a model, even with our juveniles, even with him taking a look at doing the study of the anatomy of a homicide and the status of our Black boys. And when he looked at the cycle that they were repeating, he wanted to dive more into. So, and I'm big on saving our boys and saving our men. So that's my fight. And he kind of opened my eyes to see the need that law enforcement work hand in hand with courts and hand in hand with the school and hand in hand with pastors. And
I think Sheriff McNeil, if you look at Leon County, and I'd be curious to know what y'all think. I think he's probably the most popular local official. I mean, if you think about if you go walk up to somebody on the street and say, what do you think about and I mean, name the individual, most people are gonna have some impression of the other elected officials, and it may not always be positive, but I feel like Sheriff McNeil is almost kind of universally, people like him. I think he might be our most popular local official.
He's incredibly authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people have to keep him away from people because he immediately connects.
Yeah.
And he is
He really cares.
he really do.
Like
Like
really.
he really
I mean, and and we're getting ready to go, but I remember one early morning. I think you were out of town, but you called me because the sheriff department had pulled the guy over
with his baby.
with his baby. He had just gotten out of jail and he had
No.
been out for a while.
No.
Yeah, and the young lady accused him of something that didn't happen.
Oh no, he went in jail.
He
But
had been out. He had just gotten out.
no. It was convoluted situation, but yes, he had just gotten his baby back.
Just gotten his baby back. It was something.
Uh-huh.
But this guy was on the side of the road. I think you were out of town.
Yeah,
You woke me up.
I did.
You said, you got to get out there. They got to take him, the baby, blah, blah, blah. We got to get in touch with the sheriff to explain this situation. And we went there. We got in touch with the sheriff. We explained the situation. I mean, when I drove up, it was so many sheriff cars. I was scared. But here's the key. He listened. He trusted our voices. We heard, you knew the young man. You had been working with him. And we were able to resolve that situation because if he would have gotten arrested, his whole life, his whole career,
His baby would have went back to foster.
his baby would have went back to foster care. But these are the things that are being done behind the scenes that I don't need nobody to pat me on the back. You don't need nobody. I got a call the other day from somebody who said, hey, listen, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm trying to figure out how did you get my number? Hey, the marshals are around my house looking for my number. Like, hey, what you calling me for?
Yeah.
You think I'm gonna go talk to the marshals? I might talk to the sheriff department, the police department, the marshals. You gotta be kidding. But these are the calls, and these are the people who we have serving who understand the heart of people, and that's what's important.
Who you can reach.
Who you
You
can
call them on their phone, they answer, and they care about people. So when we think about what's going on with local politics, we think about what's going on in our city and our local commissions. The thing we have to ask ourselves and be honest is, where is the love of people? Where is the care of the interest of people in this race? And if I can't see it, I have to be honest about that. But also where I can see it, I need to support that.
Absolutely. And I think that's the way to close. Final words, we gotta go, man. We are out of time, but this has been an amazing show. There was so much we needed to get to. But I feel like, we didn't get to none of the amendments. But I think common leader, I think, believe it or not, I just believe that I think this was an eye-opening
I hope so.
experience conversation because I know a lot of people feel like, hey, I want to vote for this person, but I'm loyal to this, I'm loyal to that. But do your research and vote.
I record.
And that's it. Hey, listen, it's been amazing. Once again, I want to thank Christy Henry. She's the conscious chick, and she's with me. And then she has her own book show right here on the Greg James Community Show. Then I want to thank my good friend Jared Willis, who has been a co-host for years. Now he's in Tampa, Florida, attorney, lobbyist, and you work with both parties to make things happen at the Capitol, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, to Christine's point, if you're here to help people, I think that's the main thing. We can talk about some of the larger issues, some of the ideologies that we don't agree on, but I think what's been clear to me from seeing the work with Republicans, Democrats, nonpartisan positions. I've worked with local governments all over the state too, and Tallahassee's not the only area that's having these kind of like internal clashes. And I think the key at the end of the day is there are about 90% of issues where it's kind of black and white. It's like we can work with people and we can agree on a lot of things. There's 10% where, we'll duke it out. Maybe we don't agree on this or that. But I think for the most part, that's what I'm interested in is how do we help people? And you know, so it doesn't matter what your RD or MPA is. So
Well, I'm grateful for that, and I certainly thank you because you have done a lot of work with me, helping a lot of our young boys who get in trouble, who don't have representation, and certainly I've been able to lean on you to say, "Hey, can you help with this situation?" And I appreciate that. And you don't even send an invoice because it's about how can I help. So I really
I'm
appreciate
running a
that.
tab.
You're running a tab. Hey, listen. Well, this has been the Great James Community Show. Election matters. Listen, early voting ends on Sunday. Let's get out there to vote. I got about 50 people going to the poll with me tomorrow. I'm excited about that. We're taking our journey on tomorrow to the poll. We're doing early voting, and certainly let's make sure you do your research and let's get out there to vote. In the meantime, it's been a pleasure sharing with you on this wonderful Wednesday right here on Hallelujah 95.3. All right, we off the air, Christine. I mean, I think it's been amazing.
This has been thank y'all for asking questions, and listen, let's love on our neighbors post race and thank the ones that did run, that did not win, you know, because it takes a lot to run for office, and your life is on trial for how long?
Depends on when you started.
We're grateful for people that step up, and we're gonna make our vote count.
Absolutely. All right, y'all be blessed. Get out and vote.